attention. Oh, it's up now?
Yep.
Just a slight goal. If it's not, you have to present your review, so we're probably just saying this.
I'm in a circle. I did tell some people, but some of them were very little ones. Yes. So they have priorities.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
which is completely understandable. Yeah. Okay, are you ready? Yeah, super
This is really-
fun. This is awesome.
Fun.
We'll do this. Yay! Excited about water conservation. Okay, so Ethan Kershaw. He is the city's sustainability and resiliency coordinator, and he's going to be leading this evening's program. So we're very fortunate to have you. Thank you very much. And I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. You're his.
Yeah, I work with Ethan. I'm Lisette Ortega. I am the special projects coordinator, so I'm working on this kind of drought communications thing as well.
Oh,
okay.
So
So
we're
this
fortunate
was
to
your
have you as
idea?
well.
This is actually who the library invited us, correct?
It was kind of like a cooperative effort. Yes,
Yes.
it was.
Okay.
Okay, so we have two more programs that Ethan is going to be overseeing. There's a household waste disposal 101 on Saturday, October 4th at 2:30 at the Westlake branch, and also energy savings on Tuesday, October 14th at 6:30 at the Westlake branch. We do have the opportunity to do a survey after the program, so you can let us know what you thought of this evening's program, and then also give us ideas on what types of programs we can offer. And then Ethan's just going to go for it.
Wonderful. Yes, my name is Ethan Kershaw. I work for the Public Works and Utilities Department. And we're going to talk to you about water conservation 365 all year round, making conservation your default. We're going to talk about Wichita water today. I'll go through kind of background, how we got to where we are today, year-round watering schedules. We'll talk about those measures and other conservation measures going forward. Lisette's going to touch on that, what 3 days per week watering looks like, and our water conservation rebates program. And we'll talk a little bit more about outdoor water conservation and options for indoor water conservation as well. So you're probably aware at this point, but if not, we are getting our water from two main water sources: the Cheney Reservoir, which is where we see the effects of drought, as it's a surface water source, so it can be affected by weather, precipitation patterns, evaporation, all those other outdoor factors. And the Equus well field, which is groundwater, so not as sensitive to precipitation patterns and evaporation, but we are using that source as well. So when it depletes, it usually is going to deplete faster than it refills naturally. So we actually have a recharge project that helps to recharge it more quickly with water from, I believe, the Little Arkansas River. Here's some pictures of our old water treatment plant at the top, and then the new plant that is still undergoing testing and should hopefully be fully operational within our scope of work end of year, start of next year. We provide water to 500,000 residents. Wichita's got 150,000 residential and commercial customers within it. And we've got 11 wholesale customers, some of the surrounding communities. And we also provide water to McConnell Air Force Base. Here's where we are today, roughly. We're back in stage 1. We've lifted stage 2 drought restrictions, which was watering once a week. Cheney is over 100% full. It's actually a foot above filling up part of the flood pool. And our 12-month moving average is just over 69%. Looking back at how we got to where we are today, this is Cheney's service level data over the past, this chart stretches all the way back to 2009. We're really focused in back to around 2021. You can see some of those dates marked. That top arrow where the gates closed, that's referencing the flood pool gates where we were letting out water at that stage because it had become too full. We were seeing less precipitation that year. We got some nice rain, filled it back up. And then starting into 2022, 2023, 2024, we followed a pretty steady downward trend as we got below average precipitation all 4 years, and the water source was not really recovering. November 2024 marked the low point. It was about 8 feet below its normal full capacity. And so that marked where we thought we might end up in stage 3 drought restrictions at one point, just because we weren't sure if it was going to fill back up as quickly. This year has brought record rains in several different months. November 2024 actually got above average rain, and we gained back a foot of elevation. We got 2 feet filling up in May 2025, and then we gained over 5 feet of elevation. So over half of what we were down from, we're down 8 feet. Over half of that we got back in June, just in June 2025, and that was, I think, either the wettest or second wettest June on record for this area. Part of the causes that brought us down so low is evaporation, especially in the summer months. We can see 10 inches of elevation within the pool evaporate. So if we're not getting rain during those months, especially, we'll lose more and more water. And so all those below normal rainfall conditions in the past 4 years put us where we were in fall 2024. And this year's far above average rainfall has pushed us to the opposite end of that. Here's some charts and maps that I find interesting to kind of illustrate that point over the last 5 years. So stretching back to 2020 in the September 2020, and then up to September 2025. In this chart on the left with all the red, you can see that red is below average precipitation. So we've got in about 12 to 20 inches less than usual over the last 5 years. And that's kind of how we got to where we were. And then just within the last year, we've gotten 9 to 15 inches above average rainfall. You can see South Central Kansas has gotten a lot of that extra rain, and so they're seeing more drought conditions in North Kansas, more so at this point. This kind of illustrates, though, just how dependent our Cheney surface water source is on precipitation. I mean, those factors weren't due to extra usage from us. It was almost all due to these rainfall patterns. And so, to talk more about, now that we've gotten to where we are today, Lisette's going to talk a little more about what we're going to do in the future to help keep a steady level at Cheney and what practices we can all be doing at home.
So like Ethan talked about, we really, when we were looking at our drought response plan, we were in stage 1 and activated in January 2023. This was one more kind of voluntary measures, just making sure that people were aware, hey, we're kind of maybe entering a drought situation soon. Please try and do anything you can. Just try to make people aware of, what our reservoir Cheney levels are at. And then in stage 2 of last year, we entered stage 2 last year in August. And so this was mandatory water conservation now. So that was restricting our usage 1 day a week. And this actually was in place just up until this week or Monday. And so Monday, we actually started 3 days per week outdoor watering. The way this actually came about was just those graphs that Ethan had earlier really illustrate kind of how long-term water conservation is really necessary. We don't really know how our precipitation patterns might change. And so we wanted to be able to do something that was more long-term. That we could just really focus on year round. While we had those like drought conditions, was really top of mind for a lot of people. You would see those pictures of Cheney that were, Cheney was really low, it was empty, you could see the docks. So just kind of really thinking about how do we move forward to make sure that we don't go back to that situation? How do we move forward and still make sure that conservation is top of mind? And just making sure we have a sustainable source of water for the future generations.
Can you ask questions while you're doing that, while you're doing your
Yeah, if you'd like, yeah.
Because I have a couple of questions. There for a long time, we were watered 2 times a week, which with fescue is fine. And I question why you would bump it up to 3 days a week. And then also my second question is, as much as there's being built around Wichita in the area, how do you know that we're not going to get in deeper trouble? Because all the new homes and yards and all those things that are being built, how do you plan for that? Or, are we being maybe a little careless doing 3 times a week with watering? Maybe we should have just stayed at 2.
Yeah, so it's definitely a balance that we have to be able to take to make sure that people are still able, that residents are still able to, do these things they care about, like maintain their lawns, while still keeping top of mind that we need to, be able to conserve water. And you're completely correct. You usually don't need to water too much. But one of the main concerns with people, especially with the past year of drought, of only being able to water once a day, is, hey, my grass completely died. I need to reseed, and reseeding or sodding usually takes like a month. So that's why I'll get into kind of variances and stuff. But it was just kind of a balance of making sure, we're listening to residents who do want to be able to water more while still trying to educate people and making sure they are aware of things like you don't need to water every day. And our current, which I will get into kind of what restrictions we are. For stage 2, you weren't able to water from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., I believe. And with these new restrictions, we're not able to water from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So still trying to limit, making sure that you're not really watering during those peak hours where you're just going to see a lot of evaporation and not really have it go to its roots. So to answer your first question about, why aren't we more restrictive? During our council meetings, some of the council members asked the same questions, like maybe we shouldn't be watering, we shouldn't allow for 3 days watering. But I think for us, it was just a balance of trying to make sure that, we have residents that are actually going to try and keep to the schedule, while also trying to do future conservation or keep future conservation in mind. And then when it comes to new developments, that's definitely a concern. Just thinking about, Wichita's growing. Recently, we're what, near 500,000 people now almost. So we definitely have a growing population. I think that's what this is about. Those drought response stages where we go to 1 a day, that's not going to go away. So if Cheney comes down again, we're going to go right back into stage 1, stage 2, if necessary. So that's always there. That's always back in mind. This is more just kind of trying to make sure that we have that long-term supply of water for those future generations, for future expansion. So keeping those things in mind. We are also, which I think Ethan might get to later in the presentation, is we are also looking at other ways to do, to have water supply. So like potable reuse and stuff. So we are looking into other alternatives as well. We're not just going to try and rely solely on Cheney and the Egress bed. Thank you. Yeah. So talking about the new 3 days per week outdoor watering. So year-round watering schedule. So it's going to apply all year round. So it applies to lawn watering, sprinkler devices, and spray or irrigation. We're really trying to make sure that we're limiting, that kind of like misuse. Sometimes you drive by when it's raining and you have people's sprinklers on. So just trying to really curb that. Not trying to say you can't take your long showers or anything, but you do want people to be cognizant of. But when it comes to something that's not absolutely necessary, like watering a lawn. So if your address ends in an odd number, you can water Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. If your address ends in an even number, you can water Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and absolutely no watering on Mondays. As I mentioned earlier, the time restriction will also be in place, so no watering of any kind from 10 to 6 p.m. This is just kind of best practices in general. You're 100% correct. You don't need to be watering every day, especially if it's not newly installed lawn. And it's actually better for your root system if you're watering just kind of, once a week, basically. And especially during the summer, absolutely no need to be watering from 10 to 6. You just see a lot of that evaporate and not really get into the root system. So this is just kind of a nice little visual. For everyone, we have this available online. We also have some flyers on there in case you would like to, put it on your fridge just to keep that in mind. But this is what it looks like. So as I said, even addresses on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and then odd addresses Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. So I kind of hit on it a little bit ago. So we talked about the need for if you're going to include new lawns, so reseeding or sodding. That will still be allowed. So we have what are called variances. I'm actually the one who processes those forms. So you're able to submit a form to get an exception to be able to water for 30 or 21 days, depending on which one you request. And so this will allow you to water during, your off days and also during those 10 to 6 hours just to get your lawn started. This will be kind of like a note that is put on your account. So if anyone does say, hey, I saw my neighbor watering that day, we'll know that you're allowed to do that. So you've submitted your form and you've gotten approval for that. Some things that don't require a variance request is hand watering. So we definitely want to encourage people to be monitoring when they're watering. So that's where we're trying to target more irrigation systems. Those are the things that just are kind of automatically set that, you know, it rained, was it last night? You don't you don't need to be watering last night, or probably not today either. So when we're hand watering, you know, we're usually more cognizant. We have to be out there with a hose, making sure that, you know, we're not watering in just one area for too long. So we don't want to restrict that too much. So hand watering can happen any day of the week, just again, not during that time from 10 to 6. And then irrigation using non-potable water source. So water wells or reclaimed water. So well users are still unrestricted as they were in stage 2 of the drought response plan. And for enforcement, the penalty schedule is the same as the drought response plan. We usually try and get people to report violations if they're seeing them. And we really do want to focus on the education portion of it. So we want to make sure that people are knowing best practices, knowing that they don't have to water all the time, because it can also be expensive for the homeowner as well if they're not aware if they're watering all the time. So we just, you know, we want to make sure that you guys are using best practices and that we're not trying to penalize you in any way.
How often can you apply for a variance?
So a variance is only allowed once a year. So once you get approved for one variance, we don't want to, you know, we don't want people just trying to get, you know, tell us they're resodding again. You know, it's a once per year variance. Great question, Nathan. And so just specifics for the recommended plan. Does this apply to my flowers, trees, and shrubs? The restriction applies directly to sprinkler devices to limit the water, the wastewater, and discourage excessive sprinkler irrigation use. So they can be watered by hand daily, anytime outside of the time restriction. And then what if my water sprinkler irrigation system waters both my lawn and my other plants? To maximize savings, we do encourage you to set your irrigation timer to match the watering schedule and perform other watering by hand before or after 10 to 6 p.m. And then does this apply to businesses? In the same way that our stage 2 drought response plan, businesses, besides those that derive their core economic activity from water use, other businesses must follow restriction. So any quick trip across the street that wants to keep their lawn green has to follow this restriction. So just a nice little visual. Ethan grabbed these pictures. So when we're talking about where restrictions apply, we're talking about sprinkler systems that you can kind of just leave, not really monitor. We want to get away from that. We want to make sure people are being cognizant of how much water they're using and when they're using it. And then restrictions don't apply to like hand watering or just like hand with a hose.
Yeah, those sprinkler systems were targeted specifically because we've seen other communities do that, and they're the least efficient type of watering you do outdoors.
Moving forward, so great question. As we mentioned earlier, it does not replace the drought response plan. So if we do see Cheney levels start to fall again, we will go back into that 1 day of watering, or potentially, hopefully not, but stage 3 where we do restrict all outdoor watering. So really, this is just another way to try to mitigate getting back to that point where we were, because we got really lucky this year with all the rain. We're not guaranteed that every year. And then they began on Monday. And so now we will evaluate our response plan and review its implementation. So as we're adding this, we need to, I think, integrate that into the plan and see if our, you know, remaining stages 1, 2, 3, if they're sufficient, if we need to change anything of them, because this was actually our first time activating it since the plan was passed, I believe, in 2013. So really just taking a look at it, see what worked, see what didn't, see if any changes need to be made. Okay. And I'll let Ethan talk about city water conservation efforts.
Yes, and then we'll get into our water conservation rebate program, go over that a little bit. So some efforts the city's making, make sure to utilize reuse and gray water whenever we can, mostly from the Herman Hill Water Center, which is treating contaminated groundwater under downtown. And we use that to, once that water's been treated, we can use it for other purposes and help support our parks and recreation department. Generally trying to be more conservation minded in our landscaping guidelines and upgrading any irrigation technology to use water more efficiently. And then looking for any other opportunities to reduce our water usage at our facilities and our operations, field cleaning and for fire training. Looking at what you can do at home. So why should you want to do this? You can lower your water bill, save money, and you can help conserve our water supply. The big one we focus on a lot is reducing outdoor use. So you can, if you want to stick with the lawn, you should follow our lawn watering schedule and even go less than that if possible. I've heard a lot of people talking about doing less, which is great. And you can also adopt other landscaping practices like xeriscaping, getting away from normal lawns altogether if you have the option to do so, and looking at more drought tolerant practices there. You can also focus more by doing hand watering or even using high efficiency technology like drip irrigation, or using our water rebate program to purchase some of the different rain sensor shutoffs and other tools you can add to your irrigation system if you have that. You can also look to reduce indoor use. One of the easiest ways is using high efficiency technology wherever you can. Anytime you need to replace something, going with the high efficiency Energy Star type technologies is usually the best option for saving money in the long term. We've got some low flow shower heads and some sink aerators that we are still giving away at different city facilities, including City Hall and the libraries and the other resource centers, I believe. So we've got some of those with us tonight if you want to take one. And then just making small, easy changes to your routine. If that's, making sure you turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth, shortening showers wherever you can. Those are usually smaller impact, but it's a good way to feel like you're practicing water conservation in all parts of your day. Looking more at outdoor conservation, you can use compost to improve your soil health. You can decrease fertilizer use and in that way have your grass or other plants demand less water. And you can always water slowly, deeply, and infrequently as recommended by K-State Extension Office. And it's always good to factor in rainfall. If it's raining or if it's rained recently, you usually can skip watering that. It's best to rely upon those natural patterns anyway. And in a year like this, you don't really need to be watering much. One of the reasons to move towards this year-round watering schedule that we've done is that typically once we get drier weather patterns and we start moving towards a drought, that's when people tend to water more often. So it's best to always be practicing these things and not just be jumping back and forth between those drought restrictions. Also wanted to highlight, as I've mentioned a few times, the K-State Extension Office and their outdoor conservation, gardening, and lawn care. They've got a garden hotline that's open for parts of the day on weekdays. They're always there to answer questions and all kinds of topics regarding plant health, lawn care, watering, all kinds of things. They've also got some specific drought resources they help put together with us, and that can be found at cedric.ksu.edu/drought. If you go on their webpage, you'll be able to find it pretty easily. I mentioned these already, but you can upgrade to more efficient appliances. Look for WaterSense. That's one of the federal government's criteria that they put together, similar to the Energy Star program, but more focused on water usage. And always watch out for leaks. One of the big ones is toilet leaks. We've got some toilet kit tests you can take home and make sure that your toilet isn't leaking. But generally, keeping an eye on your water bill. If you spot an abnormally high bill and it's due to a leak, we're always happy to work with you on getting those costs down as well with your bill. But then making sure that you get that leak fixed is the big thing, and make sure that you're not continuing to lose water. And making sure that we're being water smart at all times. So lastly, I wanted to touch on the conservation rebate program. We have a limit of 5 qualifying devices, but I don't think most people hit that limit most of the time, but we'll have to open this up again next year. It's been very popular this year. It actually ran out of money in August, but this year we had rain barrels, rain sensor shutoffs, hose faucet, and smart irrigation controllers for outdoor irrigation systems, toilet repair kits, dual flush converter kits, toilets, and Energy Star certified clothes washers and dishwashers. Next year, we're going to be looking to expand that rebate program to include drought tolerant seeds for converting lawns. So we're thinking including buffalo grass, Bermuda, and zoysia as some of those warm season grasses that require less water. So we're still working on the details, for how much that rebate will be for, but we're thinking somewhere around $100, and we'll continue to provide resources on how you can convert your lawn and landscaping to more native and drought-resistant plants. A lot of that work has been done with the K-State Extension Office, and then generally better practices for long-term maintenance to help reduce overwatering practices. We still hear about people overwatering their lawns, even as we've gone through this drought. And over fertilizing habits, which then leads to you overwatering your lawn to try to keep up with your grass. I think we've got just a little bit of time left here to go through these rebates, but before I start going through those, I'd like to open up for, I think, questions right now. If you have any questions on the rebate program? Okay. A brief overview then. Rain barrels, there's some qualifications. They've got to be 45 gallons or larger. They've got to be new. So we can't have handmade ones providing rebates for building them, sadly, just for our tracking purposes. And they've got to be installed to ensure child safety, debris control, and vector control, because you do got to make sure that you're not going to be breeding mosquitoes and something like that. Rain barrels, I will say, are one of the most popular ones this year, especially as people saw that we were getting more and more serious about those drought restrictions. Rain sensor shutoffs are for your irrigation. It can detect when there's been rain, and it will make sure that your system does not turn on after you've received a 1/4 inch or more of rain. It's great for making sure you're not the one that's got the irrigation system running while it's raining. Similar for your irrigation system, hose faucet irrigation controllers. If you're connected to your actual hose or another faucet outdoors, this can be set up. We've also got some other rules on irrigation systems and like backflow, but we've got an approved list of products online, which you can find once this program is back up and funded. Similarly, smart irrigation controllers got to be WaterSense certified and labeled, and you've got to be connected to city water in order to get rebates for this, just to make sure that we're getting people registered for those cross connection and backflow controllers as well. Sure, we've got those. Toilet repair kits. These are the cheapest item on the rebate kit, but they gotta fit certain specifications for what they're replacing, and we've got some example brands and kits that you can look from, but we're just recommending them as long as it fits those other requirements for what it replaces. They would be eligible. And I think once again, I'll reiterate that toilet leaks are one of the biggest causes of water waste at home, just because they're hard to detect unless you're looking for it. So always good to keep in mind. And if you do end up finding a leak, we've got a rebate for it. This dual flush converter kits are also available. Helps switch the amount of flush, gives you the option of a half flush versus the full flush. And that can be helpful in saving water at home as well. So you're using a full flush worth of water each time.
So that's just the dual flush, that's just the handle, or do you have to get the handle and the innards? It's all come.
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount of effort you have to put into to convert to something like this. It probably really depends upon your toilet, but it would be the full conversion kit. So I think that would include anything that you would need to actually make a switch to it.
Okay.
That's why it's up to $50. Yeah, similarly for toilets, high efficiency toilets only. We see this one along with clothes washers and dishwashers get used fairly often. Focusing in on those high efficiency appliances and offering partial rebates for those up to $100 as well. Yeah, same for dishwashers. Typically, it's best to get a high efficiency model if you're needing to replace your clothes washer, dishwasher, toilet. It's not always the best financial or water resource decision to just replace it if you don't need to replace it at the time. So for most people, it's just keeping an eye on this and knowing that this is an option whenever you do actually need to make those replacements. Yeah, and noting again that those funds were gone in August of this year, so I recommend looking in the first half of the year if you're interested in applying for rebates on any of those products, and then additionally looking at those seed rebates for warm season grasses. So if you're interested in that, I recommend checking in. We'll definitely be publicizing it. Earliest would be January, but I think January, February is when we want to get started and open up funds again. And then, yeah, mentioning again that we've got some free shower heads and aerators tonight, and they're also available at a few different locations and City Hall at the water desk. One of the last things I'll mention is that we've got our Save Wichita Water website still. I recommend going there if you want to get more information. We've got information on the current watering schedule listed there, and then the actual ordinance that it ties to. for anyone that might receive a warning letter or something else in the coming weeks if they're not following that schedule. I'll skip through this. I don't know if we've got any business owners here tonight, but I'll mention that we have worked in the past with businesses to set up reuse projects or just set up water conserving projects. So one of those most successful ones has been the Spirit, and working with them on a purple pipe project where we sent them non-potable gray water, so water that we haven't treated yet at our drinking water treatment plant that they can then use and treat enough for their purposes and their industrial processes. So those blue halves of this graph is the potable water that they're using from us. And you can see that's decreased by quite a bit. And even as their other total water uses increase, they've just been using more of that non-potable water, which does not take away from our drinking water. And I would recommend, similar to what you can do at home for businesses, that no matter your size, you can find ways to reduce water consumption in the business. Conducting water audits and installing low flow fixtures is an easy way. And then generally upgrading equipment and processes to use the least amount of water possible. And then if you're doing any landscaping, implementing drought resistant landscaping and following the permanent watering schedule. And then if you have interest in going above and beyond, creating a water conservation policy that would then keep that top of mind for employees throughout whatever work they're doing. Move it for questions now, and I'll put this slide back up just because I like it.
I didn't really see too much for saving water inside other than replacing things. Isn't there some other way you can save water?
Yeah, there's not a ton of non-essential water use going on indoors. I mean, it's usually most efficient to use a dishwasher versus hand washing dishes. There's a lot of simple advice like that to give, but otherwise, just cutting back on water use in general. There's not sadly, there's not a magic trick for indoor water use.
Now the aerators, how much water do they actually save?
I think they reduce the amount of water and the speed that the water can flow through it by about, I want to say by 60% or so. So it can save quite a bit of water over time. There's usually not a huge amount of water flowing out of people's sinks, but if you're using an aerator like that, that then limits the amount of water even more. And that keeps you from using a bunch of water while you're washing your hands, doing other things. And it should still be an adequate amount of water to do any task you would need to do out of
Because
this.
the way my hot water heater is situated in my house, depending on where you are in the house, it takes a long time for the water to get warm. And I don't know if that would be beneficial because they're just for faucets, right? Like your bathroom faucet.
Yes, if you're waiting on like a bathtub or something like that, I don't know that these would fit that. We do have the low flow shower heads. It was a shower head, but otherwise, it could be the bathroom sink or something else if you're waiting on.
And that would
I think it would be helpful because then it would cut back on that initial water.
And is that easy to install?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The area is really easy. They fit right into your faucet. Yeah, there's no extra parts really needed with them. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you both for attending tonight. We've got some materials up there if you want to take a look, or if you want to take home any of the toilet test kits. Those are all free, and then the aerators and shower heads. I've also got some materials on our other related work. I've got a wheel, but we call it a compost wheel because it just explains some simple process for how to get started on composting at home. And I'll talk more about those at some of our other workshops we're doing here.
Yeah.
And then talking about our sustainability integration board, which is our citizen board that works on some of this related stuff, and then general sustainability efforts in the city of Wichita.
Yeah, you mentioned some different types of grass instead of the fescue. Well, how do you have, would you even know if you have to rip up your whole grass that has fescue to put the other kind in, like the Bermuda, or can you use that as overseeding if you got bare spots in your yard?
Yeah, so we're offering that rebate as just for the seeds. So you wouldn't need to prove that you tore up your lawn to use that rebate. You would just need to show that you bought the seeds for these grasses that were.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've heard of people, yeah, doing that, certain spots, adding Bermuda or zoysia or another buffalo grass type to reflect, because generally those grasses don't grow very well in the shade. So if you've got certain shady spots, you may not be able to grow those grasses in those areas. You might
Okay.
need to rely on fescue for that. But in the other parts of your lawn that do get a lot of sunlight, they're good fits for that.
Well, you shared a lot of information. It's almost overwhelming. Because I'm like, okay, you haven't said anything.
I mean, I was kind of interested. You said that you guys were working on a project to recharge the groundwater sources from the river. Like,
Yes.
what does that look like?
I'm sorry, we had a meeting about it this morning, and so I think I just.
Well,
thought the
If
president.
it's not public knowledge. Yeah.
No. I can share that because that's just a separate question. Yeah, we didn't cover it in this because, well, we had a lot of information on a lot of other stuff.
Yes, yeah.
But we covered it in some other presentations as well. So a project I'd already mentioned was that we were recharging groundwater. That one's been in the works. That's our ASR project. And that one's been working for the last 5 years. It's been happening for a bit now. And that's worked. Our aquifer was, I think, below 90% for a while, and we recharged it back up to high 90%. It's back down to 92% because we had to use more of it during the drought period. But the recharge process itself was working, and since the Little Ark wasn't very full during the drought, we weren't able to recharge from it. So we can only recharge when the river is particularly full. Besides, I mentioned a reuse project that we're also looking at. We're actually completing that study right now with one of our CDM Smith contractor. And with them, we're looking at options for reusing wastewater. So water that we'd usually be treating and then putting into the Arkansas River and sending south to the city. What if we could capture that water, take it back to a drinking water plant, treat it up there, use some advanced processes, microfiltration, other things to treat it to our drinking water standards and maybe even above and beyond. And then we could reuse that as drinking water. We'd be sending less of that water downriver. It would help support our current supply. And we're still looking at those options. So we're doing the study to see if it's feasible and what the cost would be for that. And if there's any other opportunities, kind of like the spirit work we've been doing with their use of non-potable water. If there's other opportunities to send water from our wastewater treatment plants to industrial users in town for them to use directly instead of pulling from the drinking water.
So if Spirit has been doing this, have the other business like Extraordinary and those approached you about utilizing that system?
And, I don't think we've gotten any further in talks with any of them
Anybody
about
else?
this. But Spirit, yeah, has been using it successfully for several years now. So I'm not sure if there's going to be, possibilities for working with those other ones in the future or not. I think it helps that Spirit has a particularly big plant, and then they got a reduced rate on that water since they put in all the infrastructure for it. We didn't pay for that part, so that helped offset some of those costs.
Got any more questions?
No, I think we covered it all.
Oh,
We know it all now.
oh no, I'm gonna get some flies. I can't remember everything. I better brought my notepad with me.